Welcome to Biz Meds with Darris and Saad, where we give you the medications for your business. This podcast is all about the minimum effective doses you need to make a massive improvement in your business. Listen and enjoy.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Biz Meds. We are your hosts. My name is Saad.
And I'm Darris.
One of the things we constantly keep hearing from our viewers and what we're seeing online is people wondering how to scale. And one of the biggest things we are focused on in today's podcast is dispelling the belief around scalability.
Yes.
And what scalability actually means. Because, year in, year out, like people are trying to do the same things, but they want to do the same things faster. That's not scalability.
Yeah. So the common thing that we hear is, I want to double my business. And people believe that doubling your business, so the 2X, is scaling. That is actually not what scaling is. Scaling is not 2X. Scaling is 10X. 100X. Like that is scaling. Mm-hmm. So if you believe that 2X or doubling your business is scaling, all you're doing is really, those are just that's incremental.
Yeah, that's just linear growth.
That is exactly that. It's just linear growth. And we've talked in the past about linear versus exponential, and scaling is about exponential movement. So we're talking like 10X, 100X. So today we're really going to dive into that idea of scalability, and that if you want to grow your business, 10X at a minimum is where you're going to find that. Mm-hmm. And you cannot achieve 10X results with 2X behavior.
You can't have a gourmet meal with microwave results.
Exactly. Yeah. You can't expect a Michelin star meal with microwave ingredients.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can't expect doing the same thing over and over and over is going to yield different results. So today's all about, if you truly want to grow, if you want to scale, you need to, at a very minimum, aim for 10X. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of reasons why that is. So we'll dive into that. So some of that is, what does that mean for you as a person, as a business owner? What does that mean from the business standpoint, and a lot of the neuroscience behind that? So why does that happen? Like, what's going on with the brain, and why are we extreme advocates of moving and thinking about scaling your business this way? And why is it important, especially from a neuroscience standpoint? Yeah. And then more importantly is, one of our listeners actually reached out and said, like, how do I know kind of like when to delegate and how to delegate and things like that? And I think some of that will be, when we get into it, it'll be a lot more clear, but we'll get into that more in depth in another podcast episode. But this will be kind of the real deep work of truly, you cannot get 10X results with 2X behavior.
Sidebar. The fact that people are reaching out and asking for advice on themselves being the roadblocks in their business, I think we're winning. I think we're doing exactly what we want people to start understanding, especially around business growth. So,
yeah, I mean, that's the whole idea. That was the genesis and why we offer this. So if you have questions, reach out to us and let us know, and we'll do our best, and hopefully it'll definitely make the air, or we'll be able to help you along the way. So let's dive in. And so I guess the first real big point around that is, well, 2X is not scaling. 10X is where the scaling begins. So what we do with our clients is always have them down and really sit down and think about, if you 10X your business, what does that actually look like? And the reason for that is that if you're just simply looking at doubling your business, that is a lot of just incremental work. So you're going to end up, what you're going to do is a lot of the same behaviors that you're currently doing, but try to do more of them. And that's not what gets you to scale to 100x. But you don't know what that is until you start to think about what your business is at 10x. And that forces you to think very differently about your business. So you have to think very differently around your delivery, what your product and services are, how you deliver them, what are your current constraints. It is a thought exercise that every business owner, I think, should absolutely go through, sitting down and say, what does my 10x business actually look like? What are my revenues? Okay, let's 10x those. Like, how do I get there? What makes that up? And then allowing yourself to think about that more in depth, because what happens is, when we talk about this in our 1 month day program, is about the belief aperture, is when you don't necessarily think about it, your belief of what's possible, what it does is it reduces the number of available options you think are possible. So when you force yourself to start thinking about a 10x, not just double, but 10x, and I'll say even you want an even more powerful exercise, push out to 100x, you will think very differently about your business. And so that's kind of the first point of what do you need to do, is get rid of your 2x thinking.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like when you start thinking larger scale, you're now challenging yourself mentally to think differently than you previously have been.
Yeah.
So I can relate to it. I think that's definitely makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the first part, is sitting down and really challenging yourself to think about your business at a 10x level and being very specific about it, and not going into it with a limited mindset or putting limitations of what you're experiencing currently. But it's really, if I was, let's say you are a $25 million company and you say, oh, okay, now I'm going to be a $250 million company. Oh, what would that actually be? Where would I actually be driving my revenue from? How would I be delivering that? And it challenges you in a way that is actually more helpful, because you're asking yourself better questions versus, well, I'm at 25 and I want to get to 50. How am I going to do that? Because what you're going to do is impose the very real limitations that your current experience. You're going to weigh that more heavily, and you're going to try to figure out in your current set of limitations or experience. And what we want to do is break out of that and really say, okay, push it further and really challenge, because then you will become way more creative in thinking about, oh, hold on, maybe what you were thinking about is limiting your geographic reach. And by thinking at 10x or 100x, you're now, oh, I'm now thinking nationally or internationally. How would I do that? Now that's where that real work happens, that creativity, all of the things that go into it.
Yeah. It reminds me of one of our previous conversations where we were talking about how Alex Hormozy, when he first started, was utilizing the flyer method. He was only doing 300. And,
he needs to be doing 30,000.
Exactly, right? So, like, that's 100x right there.
Yeah.
You just immediately start doing way more. So,
yeah. So then that will bring us to the next most critical point, because, and we've talked about this idea, and what we're trying to do today is give additional frameworks to help kind of make sense of really complex things and break it down much more simply, and also give a lot more direction to, okay, how do I do that? Because typically when we talk about things, there's a very real tendency to, okay, well, how do I do that? And that becomes hard, and we can tend to get stuck and ruminate on okay, well, how do I do that? How do I do that? And it becomes less productive, because then we get overwhelmed because we don't know how to do that. So the next critical step is, so if you want to 10x your business, right, like, that's going to require you to look at yourself. and it's going to require you to get the 10x version of you out on the table and identify who that 10x version of yourself is.
Yeah, and what you need to remove from yourself that is holding you back.
So there's a exercise here that we'll go through, but there's really 3 core areas to help you with that. And that's really around, so to get that 10x vision, so we want that 10x vision of your business, but we also now this will go back to that whole idea of be, do, have, right? So in order to run that 10x business, like you're going to have a 10x vision for yourself. So the first part is it's really 3 core areas of that. So the first one is about the vision. So, and that really is around like the critical areas of your life. So like, that might be lifestyle, health, relationships, money, all of those things. And what you want to do is be really clear about those things. So we'll pick on health, that one, because we've never talked about the gym before.
What is the game?
Is that, if you're thinking about your health, what does that actually mean? So many times people talk about having these goals and, I want to be healthy. What specifically does that mean? Mm-hmm. So do you have a specific body weight, body fat percentage in mind? Do you have a specific shape and,
vision of yourself?
Of yourself that's 10x. Yeah. So is it, let's just say you want to get to 9% body fat. That's very specific, right? Yeah. So like creating that level of specificity is really important to say, oh, that's that 10x version of me. So relationships is another, like, I'd be surprised if all these, relationships. So what does that absolute 10x relationship look like? Yeah. So as a father for me, right? As a partner, as a person, like what does that really mean? What do those things? Because you really need to be specific in these areas.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to touch on the gym one again. I remember a guy, his goal was to bench 225. It's a good goal, but how are you getting there? Because you could weigh 300 pounds and then bench 225. Yeah. It's easy. Yeah. Or you could be 150 and try to bench 225. Absolutely different types of goals, right? And it requires different type of effort.
And it requires that specificity.
Yes.
Right? So that's key thing. So like here's probably the best example of it is that actually one of my mentors and coaches gave me this example, Dan, and he said, if I give you a check for $10 million, actually not a check, I'm going to give you a money order. It's basically it's good as cash. You're going to take it to the bank, $10 million, and you're going to walk it down to the bank tomorrow. But it takes a week to clear, right? So for a week, you walk around knowing you got $10 million coming. What do you behave like?
Different type of confidence. Yeah.
So that confidence, right? That
my boss talks to me differently.
So when you think about that 10x version of yourself, right? It's that idea. It's and look back to the version, like those areas in your life and those times where you had like just that resourcefulness, that flow state, that aspiration, that juice is just flowing, and like let that be your guide for that 10x version of yourself. That's really key. That is an important piece because too often, and I know that I say this because of my own experience, is that we do not take enough time to really identify what that is, and our goals and our vision of ourself does not. If we have this 10x vision for our business, but if we're not have a 10x vision for ourself and goal for ourself, we have a huge disparity because it takes that 10x version of ourself to have that 10x business. Mm-hmm. So what are the things that we need to kind of pull down and use that? So the $10 million money order, like use that as kind of the guidepost, and how would you behave and who would you be and all that, and how would you live life?
I feel like we can spin off an entire podcast on just that.
Probably, but we're gonna try to stick to we're gonna try to stick to it because I want to make sure we hit these really key things, right? Mm-hmm. So there's the next part of that is the having that 10x vision. So we have the 10x vision, but there's also the belief. And the belief is really around, like, there's going to be moments where you're not going to believe it 100% of the time. Okay. Like, that's just the normal experience, human experience. Yeah, exactly. Right. The idea though, is that we're going to work on reinforcing those beliefs as much as we possibly can. And like, that's a really important. So what we want to do is just increase the amount of time that we're believing, that we do spend believing that. Yeah. And we look and we have the results for that. But it's really critical that when we're doing this, that we start to incorporate more and more belief that that's achievable. And in the beginning, guess what? We there's two things. So Dan Sullivan, who founded Strategic Coaching, so he's been coaching since like 70s, coached like thousands of businesses and things like that. And what he said was it takes confidence. And there's confidence and courage. And the difference between confidence and courage is they're really the same thing, but courage is uncomfortable. Yeah. And so when you're talking about the belief, there's going to be a lot of times where it feels uncomfortable, and that's where the courage comes in. And as we start to get results, guess what that does? That builds the confidence. And that then becomes a reinforcing part of that belief. And suddenly we talk about that belief aperture. Our belief aperture will start to increase even more because we now have results that reinforce that, and that courage that we step into, again, give us the results, and then we will have the confidence that comes along with that. And that belief will then be reinforced, and we'll continue to push on that. Now, the third part of that, that real 10x vision of yourself is, we talked about 10x version, the 10.0 version of you, that vision and belief, and it's really around time. And time is really the multiplier. We talk about time from a flow standpoint a lot. Never heard that. And, we're not going to go into the conversation around is time your greatest, is your most important asset? I mean, whatever it is. But it's really around asking yourself, what percentage of my time am I truly clear in my vision and my belief? Right? And the more time we spend focused on the vision and believing it, the faster we're going to achieve it. And so that is how we then cultivate that 10.0 version of us, that 10x version of ourselves. Because once we're doing that, like, that directly bleeds right back into that 10x vision of our business. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the first main layer to that piece. So then there's a few interesting more additional pieces that go into that. Because with that, we talk a lot about vision, and with vision is purpose. And it's interesting because I've heard many large business gurus talk about, there's a passage in the Bible that says, without a vision, the people perish. Mm-hmm. So, and I've seen this in many businesses, and work with a lot of business owners around this, is that 10x vision and that purpose is really around, like, your vision and purpose have to be big enough so that the people that underneath you can see their vision and purpose being achievable in that and supporting it. So it has to be 10x. It has to be big.
Yeah.
It's got to be huge. And when you start to play in that world and you start to understand gradually more and more what your purpose is, there's an interesting thing. So I got a couple notes here, and it's really around, because I had to go back in and I want people, we talked at the beginning about understanding the neuroscience. So there's actually functions in the brain that are happening, and portions of the brain that are either increasing or decreasing activity, and those kind of counterbalancing things that are happening. Why we talk about it being so important to have vision and purpose, because there's actually a physiological response that happens in your brain. So your brain is actually changing and allowing you to do more. So first and foremost, having vision and purpose alters the brain it decreases activity in the amygdala and actually increases volume or activity to the right insular cortex. You got that right. And what that means is we end up with less stress and greater resilience. So from the amygdala standpoint, we quiet that down, we have less stress. By increasing activity to the right insular cortex, it helps build resilience, which is really important. So we talk about resilience. Where do we talk about resilience? A million times? Grit.
So grit.
Exactly, right? So if you want to develop grit, that's why it's so important to have purpose and vision.
Yeah.
Right? Because the brain will actually feed into that mechanism. So if you're feeling lost, one of the best things you can do is start to dive into your vision, that 10x version of you, that 10x version of your business and your purpose, starting to understand what that is, because then your brain will start to work with you on that.
I just want to quickly touch on, so you talked about the passage in the Bible. It's crazy to me because, these books are centuries and centuries old. And even in them, they're talking about you having a vision, or as humans, we need to live lives filled with goals. And like even the Quran in Islam, like it's I don't know how to like properly define it, but like it's haram not to have a goal in your life.
Yeah.
Like if you're just withering away, not doing anything, not trying, not actually contributing and making a difference on a bigger impact, it is quote unquote haram.
Well, that is why we said you have a responsibility to find out what your purpose is in this life. You have a responsibility to go and achieve that. So for those that are wanting to answer the call, this is why it's so important. And this is the how. It's giving you very specific things to start to work on to help you identify what that is. It's not going to immediately solve all the little fires that are happening inside your business, but this is the more valuable work. So this is the difference between a 10x behavior and a 2x behavior. So if you want to grow, you want to scale, you want to achieve, then you need to, and I'm not speaking to you guys, I'm actually speaking to us, is that 10x. It's who is the 10x version of us that we need to be and continually execute on every day that we're not. And that's where we're going to set the biggest difference. So we'll continue on because there's a few more pieces here. Is really around that additional idea of like when you have purpose. So that, again, there's another couple areas in the brain that start to get affected. And what it does is it decreases activity in the default mode network, which is largely responsible for rumination. Or thinking about things a lot. And that rumination is actually a very large source of anxiety and depression. So by having purpose, you actually start to quiet that down. So then what should happen is you'll actually have less anxiety and depression, because what the other part that happens is it transfers over to your executive attention network, which then brings that to a more external focus. So now you're not ruminating and thinking about things continually. You're actually and about you, it actually externalizes it, quiets it down here, and then gives you greater focus externally. So it brings you outside of yourself, which is a really powerful thing. So again, and then you see that less anxiety, depression, because now you're moving forward. So your brain is designed to, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is the best way we can help you achieve this is help you understand that your biology, you can scale your biology much faster than trying just to copy somebody. But this is the neuroscience behind it. So you need to, you actually have to 10x your vision and purpose.
Yeah. And the growth happens organically a lot faster when you're genuinely being honest to who you are and what your purpose is.
Yeah. And that's why when we talk about this, it feels like we spend an inordinate amount of time on that. And it's becoming more and more clear every time as to why it is so important and why do we spend up so much time talking about finding your purpose. Because the more clear you are on your purpose and your vision, your biology is naturally going to help move you towards that. And it'll help you move beyond yourself and less time kind of like in your own head about things. It'll push you there. And so then what we need to do from there is, so we talk about that 10x version of ourself, that 10.0 version of ourself, because we need that to support what the 10x vision and version of our business needs to be. And then we now say, okay, well, how does that relate to every day? So what does that mean? Why that's really important is because when you're operating at 10x, it's going to quiet down a lot of the stuff you don't need to be doing. And we talk about time. So you can actually look at a quarter, so 3 months, and say, what are all the things that I do in a quarter? Is that a 10x behavior or a 2x behavior? Mm-hmm. And you're going to then start to naturally weed out the 2x behaviors. We have a masterclass that is designed to help you weed those out and get rid of them to help reduce cognitive load, to allow you to do that even faster. And what that again goes back to that whole idea of be, do, have, because you are being that 10.0 version of yourself that's working for your 10x business, and you'll naturally spend a lot less time on 2x behavior. So you will more than 2x your business, but you have to focus on that 10x, because that's where the exponential growth is, and you will blow through 2x in no time. And when we leverage flow in there, like we just condense those time frames even faster, because now we're leveraging your biology, we're scaling your biology to help you achieve that even faster.
Right.
So condense years into days. Get there much faster, because we're leveraging your biology to do that. But it does start with that 10x. Why 10x is so much better than 2x, because and funny thing is, I don't know if I said it already, but it's the exact same energy it takes to 10x as it does to 2x. So why wouldn't you want a 10x?
So wait, what do you mean the same energy? Just the same effort required?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're going to spend a lot of time. So at a 2x behavior, you're going to spend a lot of time doing things that are incremental, right? It's that linear thing. We're all given the same amount of time and energy in a day. Like we're also given the same 24 hours.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's what we do with that. It's how do we apply, I'll shamelessly plug the afterburner framework. So that attention, focus, flow, and time, and a result how that impacts time. Because if you're focusing, and where we put our attention and focus is really key. So if we spend less time doing 2x behaviors, and we're spending our time working at 10x behaviors, like our results will just multiply that much faster, right? With the same amount of energy.
Right. Yeah. Okay, I know that makes sense. I was like, I had it in my head that it's going to require the same type of brain power to do a 10x than it would a 2x.
I mean, talk the same thing, right? Like it actually would require less, because you're cutting down on all of the useless activities. So you're actually going to conserve way more brain power. So why wouldn't you push yourself into a 10x? Because it's actually going to conserve more energy in the long run.
I thought it would require you to change your thinking.
Absolutely. But thinking, like changing your thinking about how to solve something, is very different than what you're spending your time and energy on.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah.
So like there's the tactical world. There's so in a quarter, what are the things that you're doing? And you're spending mental energy to do that. And then by doing that 10x work, you're actually going to stop doing a lot of things.
Right.
So I think that's going to be a lot for now. I think that's a lot for one jam into one episode. Yeah. So we'll probably do a follow-up. We'll probably do a follow-up and see there. But so I want to thank everyone for joining. If you've been around for a while, like some of the OGs, thank you. We're not going to mention your names.
You've had one shot.
You've had two.
You've had two, yeah.
And if you've just joined us, we're Biz Meds. I'm Darris.
My name is Saad.
And we're here to help you provide the minimum effective dose in your business. Moms, we love you. We thank you. Everyone that's been along for the ride, thank you. We couldn't do this without you. And remember, you're just one day away
from the life you've always dreamed of.
From the life you've always dreamed about. See you next episode.